I looked in the mirror while shaving and noticed the twin cul-de-sacs forming at my temples. Great, now I'm starting to resemble my dad with this receding hairline. That'll definitely boost my chances at job interviews. I don't think I look all that awkward, though. I stay fit, dress neatly, keep my shoes polished, and try to treat people with respect. Sometimes I wonder if I should act tougher. Seems like the blunt, abrasive types always land on top. But no, I'll stay polite. Still believe that counts for something. Who am I kidding? I only had one interview this week. At least it was near the landscape company that hires day laborers. After the early morning interview, I changed clothes and asked if they needed help. They did, and I ended up working a full 10-hour day, hauling parts of a big oak tree for $7 an hour. I think they like me because I stay quiet and just work. Not much choice. We don't share a language. They don't speak English, and I don't speak what they do. Still, the guy pays cash and doesn't even ask for names. I smiled thinking about last night's decent meal. The day's work bought groceries, a half tank of gas, more paper for printing resumes, and enough left over to stash $30 toward rent. One more solid day of work, and I'll make this month's payment. This morning, Friday, was unemployment office day. They should just call it what it is. People don't go there for jobs, they go to prove they still don't have one. I've got maybe 6 more weeks of benefits left. I need to find something soon. I was fourth in line when I got there at 7 a.m. The place doesn't open until 8:30. Apparently, others had the same plan. Get in, get out fast. If things move quickly, I'll stop by the landscape place again. If they're full, I'll make the rounds at Walmart. I've already applied to every grocery chain and retail outlet around. But let's be honest, no one wants to hire a tech guy with a master's in electrical engineering and an MBA just to stock shelves. They figure I'll leave as soon as something better comes up. They're not wrong. I would, but only for a job in my field. I'm an IT professional. That's where I belong, solving problems, not helping someone try on the wrong size shoe. Someone just joined the line behind me. I glanced her way out of habit. I don't date anymore, can't afford it. Maybe one day I'll bring back my old library date idea. It made me smile. Sounds silly, but right now, it's probably the only type of outing that fits my budget. Not bad, late 20s like me, almost as tall as I am, but she has heels on. Nice, decent legs right up to the knees, but the skirt hid the rest. She has a suit on, so the upper half is a guess. As she looked away, I checked her face and hair. Short brown hair combed back for efficiency. She has a pleasant face and almost a smile on her lips. The profile she's giving me shows her chest to have some definition. Pretty nice package. Thinking that since there was an hour before the doors open, some conversation would be nice, I turned to her just as she turned to me. We both started speaking at the same moment. Hi. Came from both of us at the same time. We both laughed, and we were both being courteous and waited for the other to speak first. Again, we both spoke at the same time. This time we both had our hands out to shake a greeting. I grinned real big and said, I'm Santana Flowers. Most just call me Santa or Sandy. Her eyes got real big, making me think she had seen my name or face on America's Most Wanted. She put her hand up to her mouth, like she was gasping in surprise. Her eyes narrowed and she asked, Is that really your name? Do people really call you Sandy? I rolled my eyes, thinking this is one weird conversation with a stranger. I smiled. Yes, ma'am. I suppose they could call me Sandy, but it's just become Sandy over the years. Really? You're really Sandy Flowers? This person was still acting shocked. I am, and you are. I thought this could get us on a better level of communication. She had a funny look on her face. She almost assumed a seductive look. The look of a soft smile and half-closed brown eyes had me charging up. She offered her hand to me again. I'm Sandra Flowers, or as most call me, Sandy Flowers. Now I get it. We both began laughing at the coincidence. I said, Well, Sandy Flowers, it must be the day for the Flowers clan to go begging. Are you here early so you can make an interview later? Sandy Flowers, the girl, laughed a tingly laugh and said, I wish. She shuffled her feet and said, When I leave here, I'm going to change clothes in my car and hope to pick up a couple of bucks from a day labor place. They contract hospitals and do landscaping. These manicured hands are going to be planting flowers in a couple of hours. I asked, Do you mean Harper's Landscaping? That's the one. Do you know them? She answered, I usually get a couple of days' work a week from them. I worked there yesterday, and they said they might have work for me today. Sandy, the girl, said, Same here. They couldn't use me for a tree job yesterday, but they did have me on the ground prep for the flowers today. Sandy, the guy, me, said, I did the tree yesterday and got 10 hours in on it. Wow, you're lucky. I hardly ever get more than 6 hours, she said. At least they pay cash, so we don't have to wait for a check. I replied, You know why they pay in cash, right? Why is that? She asked. It's all off the books. No taxes, no social security, no official record. That also means no unemployment or workers' comp if something goes wrong. She nodded. Yeah, you're right. Most of the people working at Harper's aren't from around here. Only a few speak any English. But I guess I can't complain. It's paid the rent and kept me fed. My car's over on North Boulevard, or I would have been first in line. I ran out of gas. I should have filled up last night, but I needed that money for rent. I thought I had enough to get here. I said, when we're done, I'll help you get some gas, and we'll head over to Harper's. You really shouldn't let your tank run that low. It can burn out your fuel pump if it goes dry too often. Sandy, the girl, said, that would be nice of you. I hope it doesn't make us too late to get some work. It shouldn't, I said. They take people out to jobs all the way until noon. She nodded and looked at me. So what do you do for a living? Or would that be what did you use to do for a living? I answered, information technology. You know, computers, programming, stuff like that. Wow, Sandy, the girl, said, that's amazing that you can't find a job either. Bad economy, that's all, I answered. I asked, what did you used to do? What are you looking for? She answered, paralegal. A large law firm bought out the law office I worked for and most of our staff was let go. I only worked for them 6 years, so I didn't have that much experience. Before that, I was a bank teller while I went to school. It is a bad economy when legal services are taking a hit. I can understand a company having to close, but it still takes a room full of lawyers and their assistants to finish the closing. She commented, you would think so, but the truth is, even attorneys' business is off. They are suffering in this economy the same as everyone else. If companies aren't doing much business, they don't need much legal help. I was nodding. You're right. I sure hope it gets better soon. I need to take some refresher courses, but I can't right now. I'm going to request tuition assistance for what I need, but I don't think they'll give it to me since I've already finished my degree. We discussed where our families were from to see if there were any links to our name heritage. We didn't appear to be related in any way. It was just a name coincidence. The noise of the door being unlocked got our attention, along with that of the couple of hundred people standing behind us. The uniformed guard at the door held up his hand and said, the first 5 people only. When they get started, I'll let in the next 5 and so on. We don't want a riot in here like yesterday. We went through the door, signed in, pulled the number tab from the machine, and walked to the roped-off waiting line. Ladies at the counter began saying next, and the 5 of us went to a window. I did the usual. I had the papers filled out neatly, so it would be easy for the clerk to input the data. I had names, addresses, and telephone numbers of the places that I interviewed with, plus the other businesses that I had checked in with. I asked the clerk, whose nameplate said M. Nelson, Ms. Nelson, are there any positions of any kind available now? I'm sorry, Mr. Flowers, we don't have anything for someone with your background. Ms. Nelson, I'm willing to do any kind of work in order to get steady employment. She looked me at shaking her head. She said, I'm really sorry, Mr. Flowers, we just don't have anything. She was looking at my hands and reached across the counter and picked up my left hand and turned it over, checking out the cuts and calluses. Mr. Flowers, just keep doing what you're doing to keep eating. You're about to run out of benefits, so I hope you find something soon. Meanwhile, get some hand cream. She smiled as she handed me the slip of paper that said I had reapplied for benefits. Dejected as usual, humbled, I turned from the window and shuffled toward the door. A voice behind me said, cheer up, I have a lead on a job. They might take you too. My head came up, and I almost stumbled into someone coming in the door. What? Where? What is it? Down, boy. Let's get out of here, and I'll tell you. Sandy, the girl, took my hand and pulled me through the door being held open by the security guard. Outside, I began leading Sandy toward my car. I walked Sandy to the passenger side of my 2005 Malibu. It wasn't perfect, but it was in good shape, and best of all, it was paid for. After seating Sandy, the girl, I shut the door and went to the driver's side. When I was inside with doors closed, I asked, so what kind of job? Where? Sandy said, the where is north of the city, out off 41 in a business park. The clerk told me that a company called Quality Wear Clothing was hiring seamstresses at above minimum wage. Best of all, they had classes to teach people how to use their machines. She said I could be earning immediately, with a raise up to $10 an hour in as soon as a week. She also said the company has benefits and so far has never laid anyone off. I thought out loud, I wonder if they would consider a guy for a job? Why not? Sandy, the girl, asked, girls get guy jobs, a guy can get girl jobs too. I was thinking about this when Sandy said, come on, let's get some gas for my car and we'll go out there and apply. Looking at Sandy, I said, sure hope this is real. I'd hate to miss some work at Harper's for something that isn't there. Sandy was nodding, me too, but I have to go see. You don't have to, but it might be a chance. I was driving toward where her car was parked. I have a gas can. Let me get a couple gallons of gas before we get to your car. We stopped at a gas station and Sandy paid $6 to the clerk for less than 2 gallons. We drove to Sandy's car to find it surrounded by 2 police cars, an ambulance, a fire truck, and a big flatbed tow truck. Sandy gasped, Oh no, someone hit my car. It was even off the road and they hit it. We pulled off on the side of the road behind where her car was and walked to the crowd. Sandy told the policeman that the parked car was hers. The cops said for her to wait away from the cars until they had the driver of the other car pulled out. Watching the hurried activity of the firemen made you wonder how those guys could do what they do every day. When they finally had the driver of the other car on a gurney, a fireman pulled a cover over the driver's face and shook his head. Oh no, Sandy said, the guy must have been killed. Damn, my car isn't even in the road. How did he hit it? Sandy's car was a mid-90s Saturn, but the back bumper was now pushed into the rear seat. The front of the car was squashed into a concrete culvert in front, so the car was less than half its original length. The car buried into the Saturn was an old Oldsmobile Cutlass, late 70s, early 80s. The entire front end was mangled, and you could see the V8 engine in the front seat of the car. A policeman came up to us and asked, "Does the Saturn belong to one of you two?" Sandy said, "It's mine, or was mine. What happened?" The policeman pointed back at an intersection and said, "That guy was running from a patrolman when he lost control coming around the corner over there and slammed into your car. You don't have to worry about any parking violation, as it's legal to park where you were. Your car is a total loss. Is there anything in it that you want to get?" Sandy had tears running down her face. "I don't have collision insurance on my car. What am I going to do?" I said, "Sandy, let's get what we can from your car. Did you have anything in your trunk?" Sandy said, "There's some clothes in the back seat and a couple of CDs in the glove box. That's it. There was a good spare in the trunk, but I guess I won't need that." The policeman helped us pull the rear door open to get Sandy's clothes, while she reached through the open front door to get the items from the glove box. Sandy turned to the policeman who had been joined by another uniform with stripes on his sleeve. She asked, "Do you think that guy has any insurance on his car?" Both policemen laughed, and one said, "That's why we were trying to stop him. He had expired registration and had let his insurance lapse. He should have turned in his license plate a couple of months ago. He won't have to worry about it now." Sandy shook her head. "It's too bad someone had to die over a simple registration." The cop with the stripes said, "That it is, but he would have been in jail anyway. He's wanted for a long list of crimes. Assault, burglary, bank robbery, and he's wanted as a suspect in a murder. I'm glad my guys didn't get him stopped. He had a gun on him, and he might have used it. We've had enough policemen get shot lately." Sandy sagged against me, upset over the loss of her car. "What am I going to do? Now I won't even have a way to get to that job if I get it." I said, "Hey, we haven't been hired yet, so let's get out there and apply. If we both get hired, we can ride together." Sandy looked at me with funny look. "Okay, Sandy Flowers. Takes Sandy Flowers to get a job." We both giggled over that. Sandy had to sign a receipt for her car. The tow truck driver said the car would be impounded, and she could just let it go. She would probably be billed for the tow and storage, but she could let the car go as salvage if she wanted. I asked the driver, "How about Sandy signs the title over to you, and you just junk the car? It probably has a couple of salvageable parts, so it's got to be worth at least the tow?" The tow truck driver nodded and used his cell phone. When he finished the call, he said, "If you can send the title to the lot, the boss said he would do that for you." Sandy, the girl, said, "I have the title here in my purse. I was going to pawn the car for rent money if I had to. Let me sign it for you." The policeman watched the transaction, agreeing that this would be a good deal for Sandy. When we were back in my car, Sandy said, "It smells like gas in here. Put the gas in your car and put the can back in the trunk. Call it my gift for helping me." When I had the gas in the car and the can back in the trunk, we pulled out into traffic to head north to find this quality wear place. Sandy had a piece of paper with the address and directions, so when we saw the Holiday Inn Express, we knew to pull into the business park next to it. Sandy quipped, "Perhaps we should stay a night in the Holiday Inn Express before we apply, so we could be experts." I laughed and said, "That would be fun, but we really don't know each other that well." "We're getting there, champ," Sandy said, offhandedly. She said it so casually that I knew it was not meant as anything intimate or promising. We slowly drove around the business park road to where a big concrete sign announced that we were in front of Quality Wear Clothing. Underneath was a sign that said Home of Big Girls Clothes. "Calm," Sandy said, "My cousin buys clothes on the internet from Big Girls Clothes. She says they are the only people whose clothes make her look good. She's a big girl, but nice looking. Her husband thinks she's a doll." I found the visitor parking area and followed signs that directed where applicants should enter. Inside, a smiling lady asked if we were there to apply for work. Sandy said, "Yes, may I have an application?" The lady looked at me. "Are you here to apply as well? Will you hire a man to sew?" I asked this skeptically. "We sure will. Anyone who wants to learn and work usually gets hired. We have turnover, such as people that move away or retire, so we seem to always need new workers. May I have an application too?" I asked this putting out my hand. The receptionist said, "Can you two use a computer?" If so, use one of the computers by the windows and fill out the application. When you are through, you may be asked to perform some computer functions in response to the answers on your application. Please do that, and when you're finished, I'll direct you for an interview. While you are in the interview, your application will be checked and verified for education and references. Sandy picked a desk in the middle of the row, and I sat at one on the end. I was thinking that there might be a test, and they would observe if we cheated by talking to each other. The application was the usual. I filled in all of the requested information, and as requested, composed a short paragraph telling why I would be an asset to Quality Wear. I didn't say I would be an asset in the sewing room, but said I would be an asset in most any capacity. There were a lot of questions that had drop-down menus to select a choice. When you clicked on a choice, other questions appeared, and again some had additional drop-down menus. When I clicked on Submit, a screen popped up with directions to open the skills test selected for me. When I clicked on Open, the first question was a simple question on network addressing. As I answered the questions, each one became more technical, and in some ways more difficult, but this was my field and I knew the answers. I may be putting myself out of a job opportunity, but I was going to at least show these people what I know. When that test was complete, another popped up, and these questions were all related to my MBA. A lot of dorky statistical questions, and the usual marketing questions that I consider mostly bullshit. Computer science and electrical engineering is real. Business management was common sense as far as I was concerned. When that one was finished, I glanced over at Sandy to see if she was done and sitting back. She was still hard at whatever she was doing. Another screen came up, and it gave me a bunch of parameters to create a simple program. The task was to use Basic C and to write the simple program. That took all of 2 minutes. When I hit Enter, the computer screen said, compiling, and performed the operation. That was cute. The next task was to make a mod using Visual Basic. Again, that was done in a couple of minutes. The next screen gave 20 parameters for a routine to be written in C++. Okay, now we're talking. They were pretty coy, as they gave the object of the routine first, then the parameters. Whoever wrote the question was an old-school object-oriented programmer. There were just enough trick parameters to trip up most people, but this is what I had done successfully. When I finished and sent the routine to compile, a screen came up and said, See Interviewer. As I walked up to the receptionist, a man came from an office toward the front desk. The receptionist said, Mr. Flowers, this is Henry Sharp. We shook hands and he smiled. Henry said, Come this way. Your application and test results just appeared on my PC. I'm glad I'm here to interview you. I learned Henry was the CFO for Quality Wear Clothing and its subsidiaries. He told me the company was part of a group that is owned by S&S Enterprises. I vaguely heard of S&S, but really didn't know what they did. I can tell you that Henry Sharp was sharp, pun intended. He knew enough about computer science and programming to ask some very searching questions. We went over multiple areas of computing until he asked, Have you ever been involved in any R&D work? I thought for a moment, only for the development of some standards programs for testing. The engineers working on a project would ask that I write a program so lab assistants could enter data from tests so it could be compiled and compared. Henry was nodding, listening, and making notes on a yellow pad. He said, I see here that you are not working right now. Do you have applications out at many employers? I said, At this moment, I only have 9 unanswered applications and resumes out. I think the total number of companies I've applied to is right at 211. You should have come to see us sooner. Santana, we are looking for someone with your knowledge. We have positions open in our R&D group for programming, as well as in the lab. If you are serious about using your electrical engineering knowledge, you are in the right place. If you are interested, we can begin your hiring process. My chin bounced off the desk in front of me a couple of times. I was sitting there with my mouth open, drool dripping from my lower lip, gasping in surprise. Really? Just like that? You're offering me a job? No, said Henry. I'm not offering you a job. I'm offering you a career opportunity with a company that will use you to your abilities. We'll even help you go back to school for a PhD, if you want, but we need people such as yourself. You know, Mr. Sharp, if you advertised, you would have dozens of qualified engineers out here. I'm ecstatic you're considering me, but I have to tell you, there are others with my knowledge that are also capable. Henry said, We're kind of funny. The owners of this company think that the people we want and need will walk through our door. I can only think of 1 or 2 people that we actually went out to get. We didn't advertise, though. We found them and hired them. We feel that we should rely on opportunities for our success. Potential employees are opportunities too. What do you say? Do you want to see what we are about? I could only bob my head yes, as we both stood to shake hands. Henry said, Come with me. I have to have you tested for social narcotics. I'm confident you don't use them, but it keeps our insurance costs low. Oh yeah, we do have a great insurance plan. Since you will be a part of S&S, you will be under their 401k plan as well. You'll see that it is really something. But right now, let me introduce you to Ms. Nina, our resident nurse. We went through a door with a big red cross on it. A lady was at a desk and looked up before standing. Hey, Henry, who do you have? Someone to pee in a cup. Henry rolled his eyes. Nina, be nice. If you'll give Mr. Flowers a cup, I'll accompany him so you don't have to. Nurse Nina was looking at her computer. Oh darn, do I only get the girls? I just did one for a Flowers. Is that your wife, young fella? I said, no ma'am, we're just friends or actually just acquaintances. She's a looker. You should be more than just buddies. Henry said, Nina, we'll get this done now. I'm sure you'll find out all about the two of them later. As we entered a large restroom next to the nurse's office, Henry said, you have to watch Nina. She's about as raunchy as it gets. She'll embarrass you so fast you won't have time to turn red. I peed in the cup with Henry watching. I guess they needed to do that to make sure someone doesn't cheat. After washing my hands, I took the sample out to the nurse. She stuck 3 different litmus sticks into the cup and smiled at me. She already had a printed form with my name. She inspected each stick and made notes on the paper. She said, go pour this out and put the sticks and cup in the trash. You're clean, no narcotics. After throwing out the cup and contents, I washed up again and came out. Henry said, it's almost lunch. How about we go to lunch before I take you over to the R&D building? As we entered the lobby, Sandy, the girl, was standing with a fairly tall and large lady. The lady wasn't what you would call fat, just big. As we walked up, the lady reached out to take Henry's hand and said, Henry, this is my lucky day. Meet Sandra Flowers. She is a paralegal that has experience in presentations, just what Molson and Calvin are looking for. They need someone to put together all of the presentations and to look over our contracts. Our attorney, Calvin, just doesn't have the time to do it anymore. They can share Sandra. Sandy, the girl, was sporting a grin that was a yard wide. Henry said, this is Santana Flowers, and I'm told no relation to Sandra, just friends or acquaintances. He should be a perfect fit for the R&D shop. I know the place is almost shut down with Dennis on vacation, Mark in Costa Rica, and Hans in Germany, but it will give him a chance to root around over there to learn what they're doing. Dennis will be ecstatic to have this guy. Nina said, we're going to lunch. Want to go with us? The 4 of us went to a huge cafeteria. You had a choice of various sandwiches or a real meal. The meatloaf looked too good to pass up. I had a plate loaded up, along with some bread and a glass of iced tea. I noticed Sandy had pulled a chicken Caesar salad and glass of iced tea. Henry and Nina each had a chicken salad too. When I reached the cashier, she waved Sandy and me through saying, Henry has taken care of it. I thanked Henry as Sandy and I sat down across from Nina and him. Sandy, the girl, said to me excitedly, Sandy, you're not going to believe this. Nina actually signed me up. I took a narcotic test and everything. I was about to respond when Nina held up her hand while she finished chewing. She asked, Sandy, did you just call him Sandy? Sandy, the girl, looked perplexed. Yes, people call him Sandy. It's either that or Santa, and he isn't big enough for Santa. Henry rolled his eyes. You two could become a problem. Are you sure you're not related? It wouldn't make a difference to us, as a lot of couples work for S&S and Quality Wear. Nina said, you mean like us? She leaned over and gave Henry a kiss on the cheek. I said, you're not going to believe this, but Sandy and I only met this morning outside the door to the employment office. We were both there to reapply for benefits. We won't need them now. I'll be really glad that I can cancel them. At least I think so. That's when Sandy, the girl, said, you know what? I've been so excited about getting a job, I forgot to ask how much it paid. She looked at Nina and asked, should I do that now? Henry said, how about we discuss salaries after lunch? Be assured, you will both receive a good salary, and trust me when I tell you that you will earn it. Nina laughed. There are benefits though. You can come visit with us in the evening and have a drink, and even stay for supper. There is a place next door in the trailer park that is a great gathering place. Henry can show Santana when they go to the R&D building. Sandy, the girl, asked me, I hope you have the same hours I do for a while. I could catch a ride with you until I can get another car. That brought the questions from Henry that we explained to him. When we finished the story, Nina said, you two have sort of found each other, haven't you? That's how Henry and I got together. We just found each other. Henry looked at me and said, remember what I said about opportunities? Nina told us, I don't usually come in that often, but Sue, one of the owners, said that personnel needed some help because of vacations. So while Sue is out, I've been coming in. I'm sure glad I did, so we didn't let Sandy go to sewing. We left the cafeteria, with Nina leading Sandy to an office area. Henry said, let's get a cart and go see where you will work. When we get back, your employment papers should be ready. We have a trade secret document and covenants not to compete you have to agree to. You do get credit and money for patents, but we ask that you keep them within the company. Fair enough, I said. as Henry's cart flew past the R&D building. We entered the trailer park and rode to a huge manufactured home that had an enormous screened-in patio. There were people inside the enclosure eating lunch. Several people greeted Henry when we went inside. He introduced me around, but it was too fast for me to get all the names. Henry showed me around, and we were soon back in the cart, heading to the business park. Henry began pointing out the various businesses, the motorhome building and lot, the big truck sales showroom, the truck conversion plant, the cart plant, and the strip of small businesses across from the R&D center. Henry explained that the big building next to the R&D center was the school where people were trained in mechanics, welding, sheet metal forming, fiberglass, electrical, plumbing, and other construction-type jobs. He said, "This is where we get the necessary technically trained men to work for all of the companies. We use the school to upgrade various workers' knowledge of their fields as well." At the R&D building, the security guard wasn't going to let me in. Henry said, "I'll vouch for him today and get him a security clearance when we finish. We'll do that as soon as I show him around." There were a couple of young people working in the rooms off the main lab. There was also a dark-haired lady working with some pieces of plastic or fiberglass. She was chipping pieces off and looking at them under a microscope. Henry introduced me to Geraldine. She said, "I'm Jerry. If you're coming to work here, call me Jerry, and I'll be nice to you. I need a hand right now to work on this. Are you going to do the programs I need for testing? I really need to set the whole thing up for FAA approval of our LSAs." I didn't know what LSAs were, but I'm sure I would learn. Henry said, "Come on, let's go get your security badge. Have you had any police problems or anything else in your life?" "No, a pretty plain life, Henry. I was in school continuously until I went to work and have done that since." Henry laughed. "Sounds like me. I was an accountant in a cube. Then I met Nina, and later my brother brought me down here to work for the company. Now I have an exciting life. Come on, let's go see Dorothy. You're going to enjoy her." We drove to the motorhome building and headed up to the second-floor offices. When we entered one large office, a woman in her late 40s or early 50s sat at her desk, surrounded by 4 computer monitors. She looked up as we approached, smiling warmly. There was a certain playfulness in her expression as she leaned forward slightly. "Ah, the new hire," she said. "I've already processed your application and checked everything except for Interpol. So far, no issues. Henry, did you run him through the usual background checks?" Henry nudged me, clearly enjoying the interaction. "I told you Dorothy would make you feel welcome." "Come on, Henry," Dorothy chuckled. "You know I always make a big impression on the new guys. It's part of the job, right?" She turned back to me. "Do you want to sign the non-disclosure agreement now? I can print the hiring package for you." Henry nodded. "Go ahead, Dorothy." Dorothy pressed a button on the printer, and soon the hiring documents began to print. She handed them to me, and as I read through and signed them, she continued working at her desk, clicking away on the computer. As I signed the last page, she said, "Got it. Everything's in order." I handed the papers back to her, and she inspected them. She pulled 2 cards from another printer and fed them into a laminating machine. When that was done, she punched a hole in one and attached it to a lanyard before handing me both photo ID cards. With a smile, she said, "If you lose them, make sure to come back so I can make you new ones. Now get out of here. I've got a lot of work to do." "Nice to meet you, Dorothy," I said, smiling, as Henry gently pulled me out of the office. Outside, Henry said, "Hope you weren't offended. She's really good at what she does, but she tends to be a bit blunt with guys. She'll probably be super sweet to Sandra, but she can get pretty direct with the guys. You got off easy today." She didn't ask any personal questions. When we drove back to the main building, Henry took me inside and asked, "Since you and Sandra came together, let's see whether Nina is done with her. If so, we can set up your first day indoctrination time so you can start. You know, if you wanted, you could probably find a nice rental out here in the trailer park. It's a great place to live, with great neighbors. Besides, you could be a good drinking buddy at night, and possibly a fishing buddy on weekends." I said, "It's something to think about. My lease is up, and I've been stalling on renewing, especially if I was to get a job in another city. I could save some money living out here, and I know I would definitely save some time commuting." Henry said, "You should talk to Sandra about the same thing. She wouldn't be in a panic about a car." We walked into Nina's office as she was being handed a package by a courier. She opened the envelope and handed Sandra her security badge and employee photo ID card. Nina said, "Well, that's it. You're hired. You're employed by Quality Wear. Let's see, we have an indoctrination class on Monday morning. You might want to spend the weekend looking for a place closer to out here, possibly the trailer park next door." "Henry, did you show Santana the park?" Henry nodded. "I showed him where Steve's place is and invited him out this evening. If you two come over tonight, you can have a drink with us, stay for supper, and perhaps meet someone who has a place for rent." Sandy, the girl, looked at me, and we nodded to each other. Our nonverbal communication skills were coming right along. I said, we'll stop by after 5 to say hi. Between now and then, we need to talk about a couple of things. Sandy, the girl, and I went out to my car, and when we were sitting in it, she asked, wow, this is all happening really fast. These people actually want me. Actually, they want both of us. Can you believe it? This morning we're begging for a handout, and this afternoon I'm looking at 10 grand a year more than I was making. I remembered that I didn't know what I would be making yet. It would probably be fair, so I figured I would find out Monday. Sandy asked, can you take me home so I can freshen up? I need a break from today. This day has been some kind of crazy. We left the business park by driving into the trailer park, where I drove to the big manufactured home to show Sandy the huge patio. There were a bunch of kids in the big open yard and in the patio, making me think school must have let out. Sandy said, that's nice. The kids have room to play, and that patio looks like a great place for people to visit. I wonder if that's a recreation building. I said, Henry said it was the owner's home, but they share their home and patio with everyone. That's kind of different, but so far, these folks have all been unusual. Sandy answered, they sure have been. Just imagine, from rags to employed in just a few hours. I'm ready for a normal life, whatever that is. As we drove home, we chatted for a few minutes, and as we neared where she said she lived, Sandy said, you know, we only met this morning, but it feels like we've known each other forever. We hardly know anything about each other. I think I'd like to go out to that place to visit with Nina and Henry this evening. Would you take me? I said, I'd love to take you. How about we clean up, and I'll pick you up around 3:30. We can drive out that way and stop somewhere for some coffee to just chat and get to know each other. There's a place out that way called Park Place that would be good. They have a restaurant, as well as a little lounge that should be quiet. Sandy looked at her watch and sighed. Okay, there really isn't time for a nap. Do what you have to do and come pick me up. I said, give me your number and I'll call before I come. We exchanged cell numbers before she got out of the car at her apartment complex. I lived about a mile away in another Cliff Dweller establishment. I had a low floor efficiency that was fine for me. I had meant to get something bigger, but never did. The owners of the complex had been talking about turning the place into condos and had even offered renters a special deal. I figured that if they did go condo, they would let me out of the lease and I could get another place. Before I went to my apartment, I went to the mailbox podium outside the building. No bills, just a letter from the complex. I went to the apartment and stashed my other work clothes. I washed up and shaved again to look clean and neat. I put on a sports shirt and was ready to walk out the door. Before leaving, I decided to see what the complex had sent. Holy shit, it was an eviction notice. Because I had declined to renew my lease and was 6 months past renewal, and even though I was current on my rent, I was being evicted. Damn, now I had to move. They can't kick me out that fast, but I suppose I should begin to look. I called the complex office and was directed to the manager. The woman now running things was notorious for her rudeness. As soon as I introduced myself, she said, so now that I'm kicking you out, you want to renew your lease? Let me tell you, you don't qualify. You're unemployed, won't be getting a job anytime soon, and you couldn't afford the rent since you didn't renew on time. Get out before the sheriff sends someone to throw your stuff on the curb. When I tried to speak, she snapped, get off my phone and out of my apartment complex. Then I heard the receiver slam down. Oddly, the phone didn't disconnect, and I could hear her laughing and talking to someone else. I told that guy he was nothing. Sure, he paid rent, but he's just another person who thinks he doesn't need a lease. I'm getting a deputy and kicking him out as soon as I can. I stared around the room and thought I could be packed and out of there in a couple of hours. Renting a truck would be the only hassle, but it could be done. I locked up and headed to my car. I called Sandy. Ready? I'll be there in 5. She sounded worn out. Yeah, I'm ready. Just come get me at the usual spot. When I arrived, she was waiting, looking stressed. She'd changed into casual pants and a top. Before I could even get out to open her door, she climbed in. Hey, what's wrong? You look upset. I asked carefully. I knew how stressful things could get, and upset people can be unpredictable. When Sandy looked at me, she looked like she was ready to cry. I put my hand on hers and squeezed. She lunged to me and held on to me. Those damn money-grubbing apartment people say I have to pay $50 more a month with a new lease or get out by the end of my lease. I asked, when's your lease up? She sighed, the end of this month. They've been bugging me every week about the lease. You would think that as bad as the economy is, if I paid my rent, I would be on top of the good guy list. When I laughed, Sandy almost became angry as she pushed back from me. I said, that's just what I read a few minutes ago. They mailed me an eviction notice because I haven't renewed my lease. I guess we have more than our names in common now. That got me a hug. We drove north until I found Park Place. I asked Sandy, want to drink coffee or go into the bar? They have a loud bar with pool tables and a quiet lounge. Let's go into the lounge for a while, Sandy said. I want a drink, and I think I can afford one or two. Inside, we found a quiet piano bar between the fancy restaurant and pool room bar. We found a dark corner booth and sat. I asked Sandy what she wanted. Stolly, a martini with olives. I got up and went to the bar. A striking redhead asked, "What'll you have?" I told her, "Stolly martini with olives and JW Black on the rocks." She nodded and said, "Joni will bring it to you. Sorry about being slow to get to you." "No problem, we just walked in," I said, surprised they had table service this early in the afternoon. I was only at the table a minute when a tiny blonde with a nice rack brought our drinks with a smile. She was really proud of her chest as she was sticking it out for everyone to see. When she set the drinks down, I pointed at Sandy, the girl, Stolly for the lady. The little girl said, "Good scotch for you then, enjoy." Sandy said, "I must sound like a spoiled brat. I'm really not, but the last few months have been really trying. My mom wants me to move back in with her, but I want to be independent. I know my mom's lonely, but she needs to find herself someone for company and to enjoy life. I do too, but she needs a guy more than she needs me." I took a sip of the decent scotch and smiled. Sandy continued, "The longer I've been out of work, the more I've almost moved back in with Mom. Dad died almost 10 years ago, and Mom just sits there and vegetates. She's decent looking and fun to be around. If she were to get out on the market, she would find a guy. She just won't explore." "No problem, Sandy," I said smiling. "My folks are probably the same as yours. Mom thinks I should be married and producing grandchildren, like my brother and sister should be doing but aren't. Dad thinks I should be out partying every night, sowing my wild oats while I'm young. I don't want either, but I do want to find someone to enjoy being close to. What am I? Chopped liver?" At least Sandy was grinning when she said that. "Oh, Sandy, you and I have known each other for, let's see, about 8 hours. I know it seems like a lot more days or weeks than hours, but that's it. What do I think of you? Do you really want to know?" "Damn right. I do. Sandy, the girl answered back. I smiled. "You're a fox. I love the emotion you show all the time. You really make me feel good being around you. It's cool that someone as good looking as you are can be interested in me, the geek." Sandy laughed. "I wish. You're a good looking guy. If you got out more, some girl would probably be taking notice. I'm sure that's happened before." I laughed in return. "Like that will ever happen to me. I can assure you, no woman has ever knocked me out and taken me home." Somehow, our drinks were gone, and just as suddenly, Joni appeared, asking, "Another?" I nodded, and Sandy smiled. We were getting the hang of communicating without words. When Joni returned, acting as usual, Sandy grinned at her and, pointing at me, said, "If you're trying to impress Sandy, you're doing a good job of it. I'm impressed too. Can I get your number?" Joni looked surprised, then burst out laughing. She laughed so hard that the redhead from behind the bar came over, asking, "What's going on, Joni? You okay?" Joni hugged the redhead. "These two are something else. He doesn't say a thing, and she's like propositioning me right in front of him." While Joni was still laughing, the redhead said to Sandy, "Perhaps you need to spend the night out here with us. I think Joni, our friends, and I could make you a happy woman." Oh geez. Now the women were putting the make on each other. Sandy said, "I think I have someone for tonight, but I'll keep you in mind for tomorrow." That floored me, but got another laugh from the redhead and the tiny blonde. When they left, Sandy said, "I'm glad you're driving. This booze is going right to my head. I hope you don't think I'm always this forward and crazy. I do enjoy your company, and you do make me feel comfortable. It's good to be safe and let loose." Sandy asked about my family. "So I've told you I'm a spoiled brat with a lonely mother. What about you?" "I'm just a geek. I'm the guy in grade school who could do all the math. The same guy in junior high that could still do all the math, but also managed good grades and everything else except physical ed. In high school, I learned how to hit a ball, played varsity baseball, and could still do all the math. In college, I played ball and did all the math. Since I wasn't a football or basketball player, I didn't get all the girls. Because I was the guy that was always used as the answer in math classes, I was labeled a geek. Since school, I've worked. Not much else, just worked, but I really do enjoy what I know how to do. I have a brother and a couple of sisters. They are all normal. That is, my brother was the college jock. My sisters were all the jock's girlfriends and cheerleaders. All three were unhappily married to someone who appealed to them then. But now, who knows? My sisters are actually already divorced." I smiled. "That's me. I don't want to end up like my siblings. I like who I am and what I do." I smiled and patted Sandy's hand, "And I like you a lot. Weird, isn't it?" When we finished the drinks we had, I looked at my watch. It was 4:50. "Let's go out to the patio place. It's time to get to know our new employers." Sandy grinned. "I also want to get to know you more. You know we've only known each other for a few hours, less than a day, but believe me, I think I've known you all my life." I smiled, thinking I had the same feeling. After paying the bar bill and tipping, we drove to the trailer park. As we entered the main gate of the trailer park, A gate attendant stopped us to check who we were. I told him that we had been invited by Henry and Nina Sharp. He made a telephone call and waved us through. When Sandy and I walked into the patio, Henry immediately met us. He shook my hand and gave a hug to a surprised Sandy. Then turning to the patio, he announced, "Hey, everyone, listen up. These two are easy. They are both Sandy Flowers. He is Santana Flowers, and she is Sandra Flowers, and both answer to Sandy. They are new employees and hopefully will be new friends of all of us." There was some applause and cheering. Damn, that was a hell of an introduction and welcome. We were ushered to the bar, where a tall blonde with big bazooms asked, "What'll you have, coffee, tea, or me?" She giggled and jiggled, making the moment fun. Sandy, the girl, said, "With what you're showing, I'll have some of that. But to drink, how about some Stolly or Grey Goose on the rocks? This guy with my name wants good scotch on the rocks, whatever you have." This place was fun. We met a really big guy named Charlie, with a small red-headed wife named Shauna. We met the CFO of S&S Enterprises. He was about 6'6", but his name was Tiny. His wife, the blonde bartender, had the really nice rack and showed it off. Her name was Rose. People kept referring to Steve and Sue, the company's owners, and I finally understood they were sailing to Europe and back. How about that? They were really sailing all the way to Europe. The more people we met, the more Sandy and I had to drink until I knew that if I had another drink, there would be no way that I could ever drive home. I asked for coffee, and a nice lady named Susan gave me a giant mug of dark, rich coffee. When Sandy looked at my big mug, she asked, "What's the matter? Don't want to lose control and let me ravish you." Oh wow, wonder where that came from. A lady came to the doorway of the big manufactured home and announced, "Dinner is ready." People immediately moved to tables. Tiny told us to sit with him and Rose, so we sat across from them, but we're also sitting across from Nina and Henry. Tonight the meal was fried fish. There were mountains of fried fillets just waiting to be eaten. Sandy looked at me, smiling as she forked a big fillet. Tiny said, "If you like to fish, we go out almost every Saturday. We find lots of fish too. When it's legal, we catch grouper, but right now we're concentrating on finding dolphin. You know, mahi-mahi." Henry added to it, "If you haven't fished with us, you haven't fished. Tiny and some of the guys are the world's best at finding fish. You won't believe what we catch." Tiny said, "Be here by 6 on Saturday mornings. We leave early so we can get enough to feed all of us." Sandy nudged me. "Ask him if girls can come along." I smiled at Tiny. "Is this all guys, or can girls come too?" "No problem," Tiny said. "A lot of women like to come along. They're better at catching fish than most of us guys." Sandy smiled. Henry asked, "Have you two given any more thought about looking for a place out here?" Sandy, the girl, and I both laughed. I explained, "Sandy and I are both being kicked out of our apartments because we didn't renew our leases. We're current on rent, but I think we both hesitated signing a new lease until we were employed and knew where we would be working. Perhaps you all can introduce us to some people that have rental property." Nina nudged an older lady next to her. "Bonnie, do you have any places open? These two need a place." Bonnie smiled at us. "Not right now. Everything I have is rented. But you know what? Caroline's renters just moved out. They were transferred. That's a really nice place too. She's down in Costa Rica with Mark, but you can reach them by phone." The girl next to her said, "Hi, I'm Shirley, another person who lives in that corner of the park. I think Star and Dee Dee might have a place open. Theirs is a small 2-bedroom, where Caroline's is a real luxury 3-bedroom. You two would really like it." I blushed, but Sandy said, "We'll have to look at Caroline's if we can." She turned to me. "You know we could share a big place together and split the rent. You're a good guy and I would be safe around you, right?" Rose was listening and asked, "You two aren't a couple?" I thought, perhaps with the same last name and all that you were. I shook my head. "No, we're just friends, actually fairly new acquaintances." Sandy, the girl, bumped me with her shoulder and said, "We're a lot more than friends. He's just dodging my attempt to get into his pants." Sandy giggled as she said this. The other ladies laughed with her while I blushed enough to have to take a drink of the iced tea in front of me. Sandy elbowed me. "I'm not that bad, am I? Come on, loosen up, we're having a great time. We've been lucky together all day, although a lot has gone bad too. I think the good is surpassing the bad." I reached around Sandy to hug her to me. As I gave her a squeeze and smiled at her, she leaned up to me and kissed me on the lips. That made me not only blush, but sweat too. Sandy smiled at me and asked softly, "How about it? Want to shack up with me? At least share the rent on a place?" The question didn't take a lot of thought. I smiled back. "Yeah, we can do that. Let's find out more about Caroline's place." I asked Bonnie and Shirley, "Do you think you could call Caroline to see if I can take a look at it?" Shirley said, "Sure, we'll call her, but Bonnie and I have the key and she told us to rent her place if we could. Caroline is renting the place mostly furnished. Since she has the new place with Mark, she doesn't need anything from her old place." We'll let you two look at it, and if you want it, you can move in. Oh yeah, you're not a couple. Is only one place okay? Sandy quickly said, we're going to share a place and split the rent. If there is more than one bedroom, that'll be perfect. Shirley said, when supper is done, we can walk over to show you the place. It's right between those trailers across the street. I ate the rest of my supper thinking about moving into a place with a girl roommate, and what that might be like. The fleeting thought that we could become intimate was a pleasant one, but I put that out of my head as I had just met this lady sitting next to me. After supper, Shirley said, let's go take a look at Caroline's place. We can come back and have dessert and another drink if you want. She turned to a guy sitting next to her and signed to him. He signed back, nodding his head. Shirley said, this is Stormy. He can't talk, but he can hear. If you want to learn to sign, there are several here that will teach you. Sandy, the girl, began signing to Stormy. He grinned real big and pointed to me. Sandy signed some more, and Stormy stood up and put his hand out to shake. I said, nice to meet you, Stormy. I guess we might be neighbors soon. Shirley said, Stormy lives across the street and down a couple of spots from where your new place is. We walked out of the patio, across the street, between some trailers, and across another street. Shirley walked up to the side of really long trailer that looked pretty new. She opened the door and said, I just cleaned it up the day before yesterday. Somehow, I just knew there would be someone who would want and need the place right away. Let me show you around. The front of the trailer was the kitchen. The entire 14 feet was counter, sink, and dishwasher. On the left side was the refrigerator, and on the right was a nice ceramic top range. Between the kitchen and the large family room living room were a large table and chairs, and an island counter with cabinets over it, and high back stools in front. Under the overhead cabinet, on one end, was one of those swivel flip-down TVs. The family room had a nice couch, a love seat, and a big chair that could be a lounger, all with tables and lamps. The entire wall at the other end of the room appeared to be television. Shirley said, Caroline just loves to watch TV. She has an even bigger one in her new place. Mark thinks it's funny that Caroline has TVs in every room in the house, and they are often all on at the same time. Sandy said, wow, this is a really nice place. I love the way it's decorated. We walked back to the bedroom area. The first bedroom was pretty big, but didn't have a bed in it. There was a desk, chair, and a couple of lamps. Shirley said, this was a little office that Caroline used to keep her PC in. There was a nice-sized bathroom before the next bedroom that was even bigger and had a queen-sized bed, a nice stuffed chair and lamp, and a TV on the wall. The room didn't look as if it had ever been used. The next room was a laundry room with a washer and dryer. Next to it was a closet with cleaning supplies that included a vacuum. The end room of the trailer was next. The open door displayed a king-size bed, centered in the room facing the door, with nightstands and lamps on each side. There was also a nice dresser and a large chest in the room. On the wall facing the bed was another large screen TV. I guess this Caroline did like TV. Also on that wall was a door on one side that revealed a large walk-in closet. The door on the other side of the TV was for a large bathroom, complete with shower and tub. This place was really nice. I told Shirley, we may not be able to afford this. This is a really luxury place. Shirley said, don't worry. I'm sure it's a lot less than you think. Let me call Caroline to find out what she wants, and then you decide. If you think you might want it, you can have it right now. I'm sure Caroline will give you a half month for free if you give her a year lease. She might even let you move in without a deposit. Let's go call her. Sandy had been speechless the whole time we had been in the trailer. She held my arm as we walked out the door. Sandy, the girl, said, that place is awesome. I'm with you. I doubt we can afford it, but between what you and I were paying together, it might be enough. I said, we still have to pay utilities, and we might have to pay lot rent, too. Shirley heard us and said, electric is really cheap out here because of our windmills, or whatever you want to call them. We make a lot of our own electricity. Lot rent isn't bad, and includes water and cable. I have Roadrunner for internet and phone. You two probably have cell phones, so you may not need a phone. We walked across the street to Shirley's place where she had us sit at her kitchen table. She picked up a cordless phone and made a call. Hi Caroline, Shirley. How's it going down there on that island? Really? Sounds nice. You'll have to take Bonnie and me down there. There was a pause before Shirley said, I have a couple looking at your place. They're new hires at SNS and Quality Wear. They are a good-looking couple and seem to be really nice. You'll like them. What do you want to get for your place, and would you be willing to let them in now before the first? There was a longer pause, then Shirley asked, could you let them pay the deposit later? They can probably get you the first month's rent, especially since you're going to give them the rest of this month. Okay, I'll make the deal and have them sign one of Bonnie's rental contracts. Oh, they are Sandy and Sandy Flowers. That's right, both are Sandy. Unique, huh? Okay, I'll talk to you in a day or so. Shirley hung up and said, well, here's the deal. Caroline wants $700 a month for the trailer and lot rent. That's a deal. Can you two do that? Sandy, the girl, and I were both fish-mouthed, trying to say something. I said, we probably should talk about it, but I'll say yes. If Sandy doesn't want to go in with me, I'll take it. How much is the security deposit? Shirley said, Caroline wants a month's rent as security, but is willing to wait. She does want a month up front though. Sandy, the girl, said, does that include the water and cable? And how much do you think electric and sewer charges are? Sewer's included with the water and cable, and if you use as much electricity as I do, the highest bills will be in the summer when the air is on, and that will be less than $200 a month now that we have the windmills. I said to Sandy, I can do this. I think we can do it even easier if we split it. Sandy grinned and hugged Shirley. We're your new neighbors, neighbor. She turned to me and said, if you can write a check for half, I can write one for the other half. I said, how about I write one check now, and we can use some of your half to rent a truck to get our stuff. I slipped my wallet out of my pocket and pulled out the folded check I kept there. Shirley said to make the check out to Caroline Robbins. She went to a drawer in her kitchen and pulled out a form that she brought over. She filled out the address of the trailer, the amount for deposit and monthly rent, and what it included. She wrote in 1 year on the term of lease and turned the paper around to me. I signed it and pushed it towards Sandy. She eagerly signed it and gave it back to Shirley. Shirley grinned at us and said, this is great. Caroline won't even miss a month's rent. The other couple was transferred and had already paid this month's rent. I gave them back their security deposit because the place was spotless. I'm sure you two will be the same. Shirley took the check and signed agreement and put it back in the drawer. She turned around and put 4 keys on the table. 2 of these are for the door, and 2 are for the storage shed out back. Sandy and I each took a set. Sandy, the girl, and I had stood up, and Sandy hugged Shirley again and said, thank you for helping us. The day has been a real mixed bag. My car was wrecked, and we were both being kicked out of our apartments. But we both found a job. We found this nice place to live, and Sandy, the girl, looked up at me, and we found each other. Sandy came to me and hugged me before we left Shirley's place to walk back to the patio. On the way back, Sandy asked me, how much were you paying for rent? I told her, almost $600 for an efficiency, plus electric. I didn't have a washer and dryer either. Sandy said, I was paying over $700 for a 1-bedroom, plus electricity. I didn't have a washer or dryer either. So in reality, we'll be paying about half of what we were paying. That's going to make it easier to buy a car. I might even be able to start saving some money again. As we neared the patio, I took her arm and turned her to me. Are you sure you want to share a place with me? Someone you barely know? Sandy, the girl, looked at me very strangely, leaned into me, hugged me, and said, I think we know each other a lot better than you think. As we continued on into the patio, I was really confused by this girl with my name that I had just met. Henry was waving at us. Come over here to the bar and have a drink. Shirley just told me your neighbors. That's something to celebrate. Tiny was ready to toast us and asked, ready to go fishing tomorrow morning? As I picked up my glass, I said, I think Sandy and I will use tomorrow to get moved. It might take more than 1 day, but we're moving in right away. That way we can walk to work on Monday. Henry said, I doubt that. Come Monday morning, be here for breakfast, and you two can ride over to Quality Wear for your indoctrination. There are carts going back and forth all the time. You know, both of you will probably be given a cart because of what you will be doing. We'll have to get you a covered driveway for your machines. The 2 Sandys raised their glasses and toasted the group before clinking glasses with each other. Sandy gave me a playful wink as she sipped her martini. The cheerful crowd and lively conversation blurred the line for me between relaxed and tipsy. I noticed Sandy was also getting a bit too buzzed. Just as I was about to worry, I felt the trailer keys in my pocket and relaxed we had a place to stay nearby. As the gathering began to wind down, I turned to Sandy and said, how about we head to our new place? I don't think I'm in any shape to drive. She smiled, gave me a hug, and agreed. Good idea. We should try out that big bed anyway. Let's just walk over. A bit wobbly, we started to leave when Rose, a friendly neighbor, handed me a little bag. Here's some toothbrushes, soap, and Alka-Seltzer. Come by for coffee and breakfast in the morning. We're always up early. Tiny added something about fishing being the best part of the place, which sparked a playful back and forth with Rose before we finally made our way to the trailer, giggling along the path. Once inside, Sandy went straight to the back to find a bathroom. I got the lights and doors sorted out, then made my way down the hall. I noticed she'd already unpacked some things. I washed up and appreciated the care package Rose had given us. Those Alka-Seltzers were a lifesaver. Back in the bedroom, the TV played soft country music, and Sandy had already pulled back the covers on the bed. She patted the other side. Come on, she said with a grin. Let's not overthink it. We got into bed, both still smiling and slightly amused at the whirlwind of the evening. We chatted quietly and dozed off soon after, comforted by the warmth and laughter of the night. Morning came gently. The music still played, and Sandy stirred beside me. As I tried to sneak away quietly, she mumbled, "Where are you going? Stay?" I smiled and settled back in. Later, we got ready, laughed about the night, and headed back to the patio where the Saturday tradition was already in full swing. Some of the neighbors had on playful, colorful robes, clearly a weekend ritual. Sandy chuckled, "Looks like fun. Maybe I'll join in next time." We grabbed coffee and breakfast and felt right at home in the new community. When we were finished eating, I suggested to Sandy, "Let's stop by a U-Haul and rent one of those $19.95 a day pickups. We should be able to clean out both of our places with just a few loads. I have a bunch of boxes that I have saved to pack up what we have. We can get a few more from U-Haul if we want." Sandy said, "Good idea. I'll use your car to haul all of our hanging clothes. We should be able to move most of what we have today." We rented the truck and went to Sandy's first. She said her bed had been used when she bought it, so she didn't mind if we had to pitch it. She didn't want to keep her couch since she had bought it new and was proud of it. She suggested, "How about putting this and the tables and lamps in the office bedroom? If you have something you want to keep, it might fit in there too." I did have a reading chair that I was fond of. The floor lamp next to it with the built-in table was also a favorite. They might fit in the living room, and their neutral color would not clash with Caroline's furniture. It took me about 2 hours to get all of Sandy's furniture out of the apartment into the truck. Sandy had loaded all of her clothes and kitchen items into my car, so all we had to do was clean her place up, and she could try to get her deposit back. Fat chance of that. We took the furniture that we didn't want to Goodwill and let them have it. Next, we drove to the trailer park and unloaded everything into our new home. We didn't try to unpack, just place things where they were to go. We drove back to my place and repeated the process. I only had the 2 items I wanted to save. Everything else was going to Goodwill. My place was ready to rent as I had just cleaned the place from top to bottom. The last thing I packed was the bathroom, knowing that by tonight I would really need a shave. We drove back to Sandy's apartment and cleaned as if we were preparing for a mother-in-law. As soon as we were finished, Sandy said, "I'm going to get the manager. They are always here on Saturday. When they see the place is perfect to rent, they'll want to rent it right away to collect some extra money." She left, and within 10 minutes, she had 2 people looking through the apartment with Sandy showing them the damage list from when she first moved in. She had fixed most of the damaged areas, so the apartment complex didn't really have to do anything to rent the place. Sandy and the apartment people left, and she returned, clutching her deposit check. She said, "When they said they didn't think I should receive my deposit back, I told them they could have the apartment when the sheriff's deputy came to evict me. That would take almost 6 months, and I wouldn't pay them a dime's rent during that time. They wrote the check." I told Sandy, "I want to use the same scam on the crazy lady who was my apartment manager. Let's go back there and see." We drove back to my place, and I went straight to the office. The manager was being difficult, refusing to inspect the apartment, but I calmly explained the timeline before she'd be able to access it. I told her I would stay rent-free for at least 6 months unless she agreed to return my deposit. That clearly infuriated her. She sent one of her employees to check on the apartment, and when they reported that it was ready to rent, the manager responded, "Then I'll rent it and deal with you. What are you going to do, move back in?" I replied, "My things are in that truck. If I don't get my deposit check, I'll start moving my stuff back in and stick around for the next 5 or 6 months. The manager scoffed, "I've already started eviction proceedings. How long do you think it'll take me to get you out?" I told her, "All I have to do is squat. The cops can't remove my stuff until after the court case, and that will take longer than 5 months. She was furious, ranting and swearing. Finally, she pulled out a checkbook and wrote me a check. When I pointed out that it wasn't signed or dated, she swore some more before finishing it and tossing it at me. I smiled and thanked her for the check. Sandy was with me, watching as I walked out of the office. Just as I reached the door, Sandy yelled out, and suddenly, a large glass ashtray hit me in the back of the head, glancing off me and shattering the glass door. I collapsed onto the ground, surrounded by broken glass. The hit on the head didn't knock me out, but the cut on the back of my head was enough to cause me to bleed pretty good. I was woozy and was trying to get on my hands and knees, cutting myself on the broken glass as I did. It took Sandy and one of the apartment people to help me get from the doorway to one of the couches. The crazy lady was cussing at me to get away from her furniture so I wouldn't bleed on it. Sandy used her cell phone and dialed 911 to report an attack and an injury that needed assistance. The operator told her paramedics had already been dispatched, but she would send a deputy right away. I later learned that one of the apartment workers had called 911 as they felt I was hurt sufficiently that I probably needed professional attention. The paramedics arrived with a fire truck. The firemen began sweeping up the glass, but left the heavy glass ashtray where it had fallen. When the apartment manager went to retrieve the ashtray, A fireman warned her that if she moved it, she could be arrested for tampering and concealing evidence. The lady just wouldn't learn and continuously cussed the fireman. While I was being patched up, the sheriff's deputy arrived. He took statements from Sandy, some apartment workers, and the apartment complex manager. He bagged and tagged the ashtray, then waited to interview me. When he asked me if I saw the person throw the ashtray at me, I had to admit that I didn't. He said, "That's okay. We have 4 good witnesses that saw the lady throw it at you. I'm going to arrest her for assault. Can you think of anything else?" While getting a bandage on the back of my head and my knees and hands wrapped in gauze from the broken glass, I answered, "If you're really going to make it stick, that should do it. That woman is a threat to a lot of people, not just me." I enjoyed watching as another deputy arrived, cuffed her, and hauled her away. As she was led from the building to the deputy's car, a large group of apartment dwellers began cheering. This infuriated the cuffed manager. She was hollering profanities at everyone and spit at the crowd as well as the deputy, trying to get her into his car. Sandy told me, "Sit here for a minute while I get some information from these other apartment people." Sandy moved through the gathering throng of people in the showroom area to find the apartment people. Within a few minutes, she was back to me with one of the workers and clutching several pieces of paper. Sandy said, "This is Emily. She's going to drive you and your car to the trailer park. You shouldn't drive right now. I'll drive the pickup so we can go to Goodwill, and then can get your stuff put in the trailer." A guy came along with Emily to help, so I rode with Sandy in the pickup. That was a hell of a commotion over a lousy $570. Within an hour and a half, my stuff was unloaded into the trailer, the pickup returned to U-Haul, and the couple who had helped us was back at the apartment complex. Sandy had told the apartment worker about how the huge company next door to the trailer park had hired us. Sandy suggested there might be multiple opportunities with this big company. The couple both seemed to be interested in checking it out. We did find out the girl was just a part-time employee of the apartment complex, and that the assistant manager had asked her to help us. The guy was her boyfriend and was currently unemployed, picking up odd jobs wherever he could. That sounded familiar. When we were dropping off the couple that had helped us, the assistant manager came out to talk to Sandy and me. She said, "I've already called corporate and I've given them all of the information. If you will, please give me a new address that would be good for them to get in touch with you at. Is your cell phone number still the same?" I nodded and she continued, "They asked me to ask you to put off calling an attorney until they could talk to you first. I'm sure they will offer you a nice settlement for being hurt by one of their employees. I'll tell you what I think though. If you want some quick money, take what they offer or bargain them up until they squeak. If you want a hell of a lot of money, get a lawyer. You have witnesses, police reports, and the fireman's response. You've got a good case." I thanked her for the advice and said we would think about it. Sandy suggested we make a grocery store run to get a few things for supper and the house. Neither one of us had brought much in the way of food from our depleted cupboards. The Publix next to the trailer park was the fastest, and we spent about $20 on some food for later, tomorrow, and some beverages for us to use to celebrate. Back at home, we began to unpack our things. I had started to pick up a box of my clothes, but had to put it down when I became dizzy. When I staggered, Sandy told me to sit for a little while to see if the dizziness went away. It mostly did, but I was feeling a little nauseous. As soon as she heard me say this, she said, "Come on, we're going to the hospital. You may have a concussion and should be looked at." We drove to University Community Hospital back in Northeast Tampa, where we waited in the emergency room waiting area for 2 hours before someone could look at me. They inspected the cut on my head and sent me to X-ray. A half hour later, a doc said there wasn't any swelling of the brain, but there was a small crack in my skull. He said I should be okay, but should remain awake until at least 10 this evening. He suggested aspirin if I needed pain relief. I had to sign a long list of documents as I didn't have any health insurance and didn't have enough to pay the bill right then. A couple hours at the hospital had a $3,000 price tag. We should have just waited to see if I got worse. Now I was not only hurt, I was depressed over the magnitude of the new debt, as well as wondering if this was going to interfere with my new job. Back at the trailer park, Sandy suggested we go over to the patio to see if Henry was there. We could tell him what had happened and see what he thought. Sandy said, "Look on the bright side. We have our apartment deposits back, so we have enough cash until I get paid. Even if you can't work right away, it'll work out." I looked at Sandy and asked, "We just met. Are you really willing to carry me until I can work?" Sandy was quick to answer, "I sure am. You didn't hesitate to help me. We've rented this place together, and we did seal the deal this morning, didn't we?" I smiled as I gathered her into my arms for a hug. She snuggled into me and said, "You may not be able to do much intimate cuddling for a day or so. You better not get yourself worked up. Come on, let's go see if Henry is on the patio." We walked to the patio at a slow pace to make sure I was not having any problems. When we entered the screened area, it seemed as if there was a full-blown party going on. Some people were finishing eating at the big tables, and some were playing board games at another part of the tables. Groups were playing cards at smaller tables, and a large group was around the stools and tables near the bar. As soon as we came in, Henry hollered, "Hey, you two, where have you been? You better grab one of those calzones before they are all gone. You get one, and I'll fix you something to drink." I held up my hand and told Henry, "I think I'll stick with Coke tonight. I reached my booze limit last night." Sandy said, "Tell him the truth. Tell him about our day. I'll get us something to eat." As I described our day, the big guy, Tiny, was listening, and as the story progressed, he moved closer. When I finished, Henry said, "You know, your insurance with the company may already be in force. If you get something from a settlement with the apartment complex, you'll have to reimburse the insurance company, but I think you're covered." Tiny asked, "Did you complete all of the security forms yesterday?" Henry answered for me, "Yep, he was even propositioned by Dorothy." Tiny laughed, "Well then, Dorothy screwed someone for sure now. That would be the insurance company. You're covered, and you can take your insurance card to the hospital to cover the bill. You can probably do it all over the phone. You might have some copay, but it won't hurt nearly as bad." Sandy had heard this and was smiling. She said, "See, it's working out. Landing here has been our lucky day." Shirley and Stormy were sitting near us, and Shirley asked, "Did you guys enjoy your first night here at the park?" I must have blushed enough to be noticed, and Sandy must have glowed enough to be detected, as Rose, who was sitting with Tiny, said, "I think this couple enjoyed their first night here a lot." Sandy and I grinned. Tiny said, "On Monday, I want you to ask our in-house legal staff for a referral to an injury attorney. Your apartment complex has some legal liability for your injury. Considering that their manager intentionally injured you, you could probably own the whole complex if you wanted. You might want to pursue this even if it's just for the copay you'll owe to the hospital. Get Henry to introduce you to Calvin Monday morning." Henry was listening and added, "I want you to see Nurse Nina to have you checked out before you go to work Monday morning. We need to make sure you're doing okay. That's what she's for." Sandy and I ate the calzones with some Coke to wash them down. I told Sandy, it was a good idea to come over tonight. I sure hope we don't wear out our welcome. A lady named Susan was sitting next to us with her husband, a guy named Kevin. Susan said, "Never think that. If there is anything you need to learn about us, it is that we are a family out here. You'll soon know everyone here, and we all want you to come every day. Come for breakfast and morning coffee. Come for lunch if you're close by. Come for after-work drinks or social time, and stay for supper. The more you're here with us, the more you'll want to be a part of us. We all love to have new people, people who embrace the idea of good friends and family." Henry leaned over and said, "She didn't mention that I'm her brother and that Steve is our brother as well. That guy over there is Tiny's dad and is the trailer park manager. Not a worry, though, as the park is owned by the same couple who own all the businesses out here." Tiny said, "I beg your pardon. I'm one of the owners of all of the S&S companies as well." "You are too, Henry, as you're still under S&S. Tiny turned to us and said, "You see, Steve gave half of the company to the employees through their 401k plan. So every person nationwide employed by S&S is an owner of the company." Sandy asked, "You mean this guy just gave away half the company?" Tiny answered, "He sold some and gave some away. He's done even more, but I can't comment about some of it, as Steve wishes to keep it private. Don't worry about Steve, though. The man still has holdings that are worth a ton. And then there's Sue. She is the real owner of Quality Wear. She has distributed part of her holdings to the employee 401k plan, but nowhere near what Steve has. The clothing industry is more hazardous than what Steve does." Henry added, "Everyone here has prospered because of Steve and Sue. Several of us have gained great financial wealth from them, but most of all we've gained the personal wealth of a big family that takes care of each other." Susan added, "So you see, you two are supposed to be here. You're supposed to be part of our family. I hope it brings you closer to each other, as well as closer to us." Sandy was hugging me as we sat together with all of these new friends. I said, "This is all very powerful, very secure. I hope I can contribute to everyone's benefit." Susan's husband, Kevin, said, "You will, Sandy, or Sandy and Sandy, you will." A lady in jeans and t-shirt came to the bar to draw a mug of beer and said, "It's nice to have a couple whose names rival Mandy and me. Now we have the Sandys and the Andys." Another lady that came up to the lady drawing the beer said, "Too many Sandys around here. It's a good thing you're not mechanics, or it would get really confusing." Rose said, "Meet Mandy and Sandy, two of the best motor builders in the country. You see, everyone has taken an interest in you too because you're new. They want to know you. They want you to become part of us." Mandy said, "We want you as long as you know how to party, that is to eat, drink, and be merry. If you're not a little kinky now, you will be. If you're a prude, you won't be soon enough. This is a great bunch that work and have a lot of fun together. It's not all party, but just a great everyday life." Sandy, my girl, announced, "It's time for me to get this guy home. We'll see how he is in the morning, and come over for breakfast. Do you guys start at 6 on Sundays too? Tiny said, some do, but Glenda and Martin are on vacation with Steve and Sue. Rose and I'll be here around 6:30 or 7, but someone will have coffee going by 6. Sunday is another great visual day, usually better than Saturday. Be here or be square. Rose whispered something into Sandy's ear as we were standing that brought a smile to Sandy's face. We said goodnight and walked back to our new home. I asked what Rose had said, but Sandy just smiled and said, you'll see. At home, we unpacked into the built-in drawers of the main bedroom without even discussing whether one of us would use the other room. Our clothes were hung neatly in the walk-in closet, and our storage boxes were finally empty. Sandy smiled and said, once we tidy up tomorrow, we'll be completely moved in together. How does that feel to you? Standing in the doorway of our new room, we embraced and looked around at our fresh start. I replied, it feels good. It feels natural. It feels right. She gave me a warm hug and said, let's get some rest. We've earned it. After brushing our teeth and washing up, we settled into bed and held each other. There was a deep sense of peace between us, a quiet comfort in the closeness. We shared a kiss, and I felt a wave of affection. Sandy smiled and whispered, I'm really happy we're here. With each other. We fell asleep in each other's arms. The next morning, I awoke feeling content and well-rested. Sandy lay next to me, smiling softly. Good morning, she said, resting her head on my shoulder. I've never felt this connected to someone before. Her sincerity moved me. I hugged her gently and kissed her forehead. We lay there quietly, enjoying the morning stillness. I remembered it was February 13th. Valentine's Day was tomorrow. I needed to find time to sneak away and get something thoughtful for Sandy. Eventually, we got up to shower. In the bathroom, she asked, how are you feeling? Dizzy at all? Nope, I feel great, I said. Clear-headed and ready for the day. Good, she replied. I'd hate for you to miss your first day at work out here. By 7:30, we were at the patio for breakfast. A large group had gathered, everyone in casual resort wear. Sandy had worn a beautiful sheer orange dress that complemented her skin tone and dark hair. It caught the eye, and even though I'd seen her dress down at home, this outfit took me by surprise. She caught me staring and joked, do you like it? Oh yes, I smiled, but I may need a moment to recover. She laughed. Later. Right now, I'm having fun showing off a bit. I joined the other men at the bar while Sandy mingled with the women. Tiny poured me a light Bloody Mary and asked if I had any Valentine's Day plans. Just planning to pick up a card and some candy, I admitted. Tiny grinned. We're organizing a special group dinner catered, with dancing and everything. It'll be a surprise for the ladies. You in? I nodded. Sounds perfect. What's my share? Don't worry about it. My treat this year. Your turn will come. I thanked him and began to think of what I could give Sandy, something meaningful. We'd only been together a short time, but something real was growing between us. As we ate pancakes, Sandy mentioned she was heading out with the women. I told her the guys had invited me too. After breakfast, the group split off for their day plans. Tiny said, let's head out. I've got room in the expedition. And with that, we were off. When we pulled out of the park, I was sitting in the middle seat with Henry. He asked me, what are you going to get Sandy? Anything special? I had to ask, where are we going? Is this a special place? Henry laughed. I guess you wouldn't know. Tiny and I helped a guy go into the jewelry business, and he has grown to the point that he has a very successful store of nice jewelry. Because of our relationship, he's going to sell to us at his cost. That's like better than half off. His place isn't very far, and he's there early today just for us. He usually doesn't open until 1 on Sundays, but he and all his staff are there early today for our private showing. We pulled up in front of a well-known freestanding jewelry store. This store was known for high-quality custom-made jewelry, as well as some unique items that are hard to find. Everyone scattered to different cases with a salesperson coming to each of us to help with our selection. The lady who came to my aid was about 50, nice-looking, and very personable. She asked, what makes this a special Valentine's Day? Now that's a good way to ask a customer what he's looking for. I'm looking for something for someone who completes us as a relatively new couple, but two people who feel as if we've known each other for years. She smiled. Are you in love? Truly in love? That was a shock. I had to consider that. I had to search my feelings for that answer. I looked at the sales lady. Yes, we are truly in love. Thank you for asking me that question. You've made what I want easier. It didn't take long to find the bigger than normal locket and chain that I wanted. The lady took it to a back workroom to have the locket engraved. When she came back, I showed her something else I wanted. Then I did what I never did. I paid for my purchases with a credit card. I really did need to ask Henry what I would be making. On the way back to the trailer park, we stopped at a mall to get cards for tomorrow. I took the time to get cards and candy for my mom, sisters, and sister-in-law too. I would be busy after work delivering them. Perhaps I could drop them off today. At the park, I went to my trailer and hid my gift and card. I figured on giving the card in the morning and the gift with the other guys after supper. That should be a good setting for what I had in mind. I went back to the patio to join the guys, feeling pretty good about everything. Henry was chatting with Tiny, so I went up to them and asked, "Henry, I know this is Sunday, but I haven't had a chance to ask you something. I know whatever your answer is will be good, but could you tell me what my salary might be?" Tiny began laughing. "You mean you took the job without finding out how much you were going to make? What if it was almost minimum wage?" I bit my lip and said, "Okay, then I would prove what I'm worth in order to make more. I needed steady employment in my field, and you are giving it to me. That will go a long way to making me happy. I've been living on next to nothing for so long that a little longer won't hurt." Henry reached out and patted my arm. "You won't be going to work for minimum wage. Tiny and I discussed it, and we're starting you at 75, and feel you'll probably be over 100 in a year. It depends on how much you contribute to our projects. Of course, if you create new stuff, the sky's the limit." I must have looked like a fish out of water as my mouth was gasping for air. 75? 75,000. You know what I made at my last place? Why so much? Tiny said, "We can cut it back if you want, but you are qualified for what we want, and we had a budget for that position. We're not giving you anywhere near 100% of the budget, so you have room to grow. Trust me, you'll earn the money." Relief flooded my body. I had just spent a wad of money, and now I could see that I could pay off the credit card debt quickly. Henry asked, "Does that help with what you bought today?" I smiled real big. "It sure does." "In that case," Tiny said, "another Bloody Mary should be in order." We sipped on Bloody Marys until some ladies put a bunch of cold cuts, cheeses, vegetables, and bread out on the tables. One nice-looking, very Afro-American lady, named Peaches, announced, "If you want soup, it's on the stove in the kitchen. The bowls are next to it." This place was full of a variety of people. There were several African Americans, Latinos of several countries such as Cuba, Puerto Rico, Mexico, Venezuela, and probably others. There was an Indian guy and his wife, more than one Native American, some dark Italians, and I was told a pair of Asian sisters lived out here. Yet everyone was part of the family. As we all ate, still sipping on Bloody Marys, the girls returned. I saw Sandy take off for the trailer and come trotting back in a couple of minutes. When she came into the screened patio, she came to me and gave me a warm, sweet kiss. That was the perfect way to tell me my gift was right. Sandy excitedly told me how the ladies had gone to a variety of places and that some were open just for them. She grinned and said, "You're in for a surprise." As a matter of fact, all you guys are in for a surprise. Sandy joined me with a Bloody Mary and had some lunch. She said, "Careful with drinking. You may still have a concussion and you need to let it heal." I agreed and nodded. We went to the trailer, where we had to rearrange the living room furniture a little to accommodate my chair and lamp. We arranged Sandy's couch, chair, tables, and lamps in the office area, and set our two computers up on side-by-side desks. Sandy said, "Since we have cable, we can get Roadrunner pretty cheap. I'll call them to see how much it would be." I said, "I have my router from the apartment. Let me plug it in and see if the service might still be on from the previous tenant." Sure enough, the connection was still active, but we called anyway to get the billing changed to my name. When the house was perfect, we decided to take a short Sunday afternoon nap. This required our helping each other out of our clothes, snuggling under the covers until we were hot and sweaty, and once again ignoring the possibility that Mother Nature could make Sandy a mother. For some reason, neither one of us was concerned. We woke up around 3, took quick showers, and decided to head out to the patio instead of making dinner ourselves. The group out there was fun, and both Sandy and I wanted to spend more time with them. There were boxes of pizza, wings, and mini calzones. The big guy, Charlie, whose wife, Shauna, had red hair, grinned and said, "This is just the first round. More comes in around 6 or 7. Dig in, enjoy." While we snacked and sipped cold beer from frosted mugs, I turned to Sandy and asked, "Hey, want to come with me to deliver some Valentine's cards? I've got a few for my mom and sisters. Thought it'd be nice to drop them off." "Neat," Sandy, my girl, said. "I have a card for my mom. I was going to ask to borrow your car so I could deliver it. You can meet her now. We'll have to be careful talking about our new place together. She probably wouldn't think that us moving in with each other is a good idea. What she doesn't know today won't hurt her. She'll find out soon enough." We drove to some condos in town and country. Sandy called before we arrived to tell her mom she was coming. She didn't say she was bringing a friend. When we went to the door, Sandy just unlocked it with her key, and we walked in to find her mom in front of an ironing board in only her bra and brief panties. Sandy exclaimed, "Mom, put some clothes on." She looked up and blushed bright red. She shrugged her shoulders and said, "The damage has been done. He's already seen everything, anyway." She did leave the room and came back wearing a fluffy robe. Sandy's mom was built a lot like Sandy, with a little wider hips and a little fuller top. She wasn't that old, or at least didn't look very old. When Sandy introduced me as Santana or Sandy Flowers, her mom looked at me very strangely. She said, "Really? You're not kidding? Sandy Flowers?" Sandy laughed. "Really, Mom? People are already referring to us as the Sandys." Mrs. Flowers said, "He'll just have to call you by your real name, Sandra. You know I like that better." "Oh, Mom, you just want me to be formal. Should Sandy call you Mabel or Mrs. Flowers? I think your first name would be best." Mrs. Flowers came over to me and jabbed her finger into my chest. "If you call me Mabel, you better be running out that door when you do, or you won't be calling anybody anything." I had to laugh. "Gotcha. I suppose you're known as Anne." She smiled. "Call me that or whatever." "So how long have you two been going together?" Sandy said, "It seems we've known each other forever, Mom. We are really what you would call soulmates. We have more than our names in common. We're even going to be working at the same company." "Oh, good," Mrs. Flowers exclaimed. "You've got a job. What will you be doing? Where's it at? Who's it with?" Sandy laughed. "Take it easy, Mom. You knew I would get a job. It was just when, that was the problem. I'm going to work for Quality Wear Clothing out near Lutz. They also are that company, biggirlsclothes.com. I'll be working with their attorney and some guy named Molson, preparing presentations and reviewing contracts." "Sounds like a good job. Sandra, how much cut in pay from your last job do you have to take?" "None, Mom," Sandy said. "They're paying me more than I used to make at the law office." "That's wonderful, Sandra. I guess that means you won't be moving home now. I was looking forward to having you back with me for a while." Sandy patted her mother's hand. "I'm a big girl now, Mom, and need to be on my own. I'll have you over for dinner soon. You'll see that I can now cook too." Mrs. Flowers looked at me and asked, "Does she cook for you too?" I said honestly, "Not yet, but we have been eating together regularly. I live out at a place where a lot of people get together to eat with each other." Mrs. Flowers asked, "You mean like a commune? One of those free love places, something like that?" It was my turn to laugh. "No, just a great group of people that live and work together. They are a wonderful group. I'll have to meet these people." "It sounds too idealistic to be real," Sandy's mom said. "Well, Mom," Sandy said as she got up and gave her mom a hug, "I just stopped by to give you a card for tomorrow. I'll call you." She paused. "We have to deliver some cards to Sandy's sisters and mother." When we were in the car on the way to my folks' place, out off Gun Highway, Sandy said, "That went well. We did it. We didn't let any cats out of the bag." I didn't tell her about my car, as she could have put a lot of twos together if she knew I didn't have transportation. I called out to Mom and Dad's and found out that my sisters and my brother, with my sister-in-law, were all at the house for the weekly Sunday evening get-together. That was perfect. I didn't have to traipse around the county hunting down sisters. Thank goodness I had a Valentine for my sister-in-law. I had a small box of candy for each of the women as well. I walked in the door, ushering Sandy in. My dad saw the new face and immediately got up to come to us. I said, "Sandy, my dad, Jake Flowers. Everyone calls him Sarge. Dad, this is Sandra, or Sandy Flowers." My dad gave a hearty laugh. "Really? My son has found another Flowers. Nice to meet you, Sandy Flowers." "Oh great, came from my brother, also Jake, another Sandy Flowers. Just what we need, dual Sandys." My mother came into the room with her warm smile, wiping her hands on her ever-present apron. "Hi, I'm Irene, the mom of this menagerie." She stuck out her hand and added, "I heard, another Sandy is in our midst." My sisters, Kathy and Cindy, were now standing by Dad. I introduced Sandy to them, and then to Marcia, Jake Jr.'s wife. Like magic, Mom spirited Sandy and the other three women off to the kitchen, leaving me with Dad and Jake. Dad elbowed me as we went toward the couch. "She's a looker, kid. I'll bet she hot her in a firecracker too, just like your mom." "Oh, Dad," I said, with a groan, "too much information. Moms are those sweet little ladies that wear aprons and give you cookies." Jake Jr. rolled his eyes. "Right, like they had 4 kids just so she could bake us cookies. At least they got it right the first time." He went on, praising Jake again, how he was the oldest, how great he was, as if I hadn't heard it all 100 times before. Dad chuckled. "Junior, you're such a blowhard. You should be more like Sandy, quiet and confident." Jake jumped in. "Hey, Marcia's amazing. She was Miss Florida State our senior year, and she still turns heads." Yeah. And how many kids has the knockout knocked out? You need to get some on the deck here pretty soon. Your brother is probably going to beat you with his lady, right, son?" Dad was laughing as he slapped me on the leg. Jake said, "Well, Kathy and Cindy should be getting married again soon and having kids this time. They're party girls, though, and aren't interested in marriage again. It'll happen, Dad, and you'll be swarmed with grandchildren." "Damn, I sure hope so," Dad said. I still had a handful of Valentine's Day cards and a bag of boxes of candy, so I got up and went to the kitchen. When I walked in, Kathy saw me and hushed everyone up. I gave Mom a kiss, her card, and the largest box of candy. "Happy Valentine's Day, Mom. Save it until tomorrow." I gave each of my sisters a card and small box of candy and received a hug and kiss from each. Those two were built and good-looking, and I'm sure they turned some heads. When I handed Marcia a card and box of candy, she grabbed me in a full-body hug and kissed me on the lips far more passionately than a sister-in-law should. "Oh, Sandy, that is so sweet. Thank you. Now my Valentine's Day will be complete," Mom said. "That was some lip lock you put on Sandy in front of his girl. Are you trying to be competition?" Marcia blushed and said, "No, just thinking about the conversation we were having. That was special of Sandy to include me for Valentine's Day." Cindy asked, "What did you get for Sandy for tomorrow? Flowers? Candy? What?" "You'll have to wait and see. From the way you women had your heads together, I'm sure you'll find out." Kathy said, "You know we've always told Mom everything. Marcia even talks to Mom about everything too. We're tight, and we have each other's ear." Sandy said, "They are really open with each other. They do make me feel like I belong." Cindy said, "She does fit. You better keep this one. I think you found one better looking than your sisters." "Who would believe the geek of the week would have a good-looking lady like you, Sandy?" Sandy, my girl, grinned. "Where you see a nerd, I see a charmer." Mom beamed. "She sounds just like your dad and me. I think he's quite the catch, and he proves it all the time." "Mom," Kathy moaned, "you're always talking like that. It's a bit much. Moms don't talk like that." Mom smiled. "You can tell me all about the guys you've met, and I can't say how great your dad is?" "I don't think so. Let me tell you, if you ever meet a guy like your dad, you better hold on to him." Sandy laughed, while my sisters and I blushed. Mom got up, gave me a hug, and gently touched the bandage on my head. "What in the world happened to you?" I said. "The apartment manager flipped out when I was getting my deposit back." I said something that made her mad, and she threw a big ashtray at me. I don't think she meant to hit me, but she did. Sandy added, "She's paying for it too." The ashtray broke a glass door after bouncing off me, which is why my hands have these cuts. The police arrested her too. Mom said, "Wow, you've had some excitement. Are you okay? Are you cut bad?" I didn't want to tell Mom that I had a cracked skull, so I didn't mention it. Sandy was good to hold that information back as well. Mom was standing behind me with her hands on my shoulders and said, "We're about to have some roast beef sandwiches. Want to join us?" Marcia said, "Jake brought some Guinness for all of us. Stay and have some hot roast beef with us." I looked at Sandy. She smiled and nodded. As soon as I did, there was a flurry of activity. The 5 women began getting plates and flatware out, while some began preparing the food. Marcia and Sandy set the table. Mom was making gravy, Cindy was pulling a big tray of French fries from the oven, and Kathy was putting little bowls of salad on the table. Mom said, "Sandy, you," my son Sandy, "slice the meat. Not too thin, not too thick, you know how I like it." Dad and Jake wandered into the kitchen to check on the good smells that were permeating the house. Jake immediately started getting out bottles of Guinness. He asked Sandy, "You're the only one I don't know well. Are you up for a Guinness with your meal? It's almost a Sunday night tradition around here." Sandy said, "That would be great." "Sounds good." We all sat down to a juicy, sloppy open roast beef sandwich with some crisp fries and a salad. We all ate and drank our beer without a lot of conversation. Mom decided to liven up the party. Sandy, or Sandra here, said that the two of them have rented a place together up in North County, up near Lutz. She said both of them have been hired by that company, S&S, although she says she's going to be working for Quality Wear Clothing. What do you think about that? I was shocked that Sandy disclosed so much to my family. Kathy sighed. Even the nerd is shacking up. Next thing you know, he'll be bouncing kids on his knee. Cindy said with a smile, "If he wasn't my brother, I'd be boffing him, that's for sure. He is cute, and he's so damn smart. I don't think any of us kids would have gotten through math in high school if the boy wonder hadn't helped." While nudging Marcia, Jake said, "She's right. Sandy was the only one who understood any of that stuff. He was so far ahead of everyone else that he really did help us." I gave Jake his due. "Well, I never was the athlete you were. I was just never thick enough to be a football player. Thank goodness for baseball, or I would have been the real geek." Dad said, "Not to worry, kid. You were a hell of a ball player. You could have gone pro according to several scouts, but you wanted to continue on in school. You probably did right, as look what you know now." Mom said, "He knows he has a good thing in Sandra here. I'm glad he's finding a partner." Dad grinned. "Me too. I was getting worried about the guy. He wasn't chasing nearly enough for a guy his age." "Now, Sarge," Mom said, "you didn't chase very long. I caught you early on your quest to populate the earth." This caused some laughter. That's when Mom really blew me away. "Well, our Sandy might be doing some of that too, if these two continue." His Sandy says she's not trying to stop anything because it feels so right to keep doing what they're doing. How about them apples? That's your mom speaking there. Got a hole I can crawl into. What's this? Sandy, the girl, is grinning along with the other 3 young women at the table. "Isn't there anything sacred around this family?" Jake said, If you knock her up, I'll borrow you to do Marcia. The way she moons over you, she'd probably like to try you on for size. I was rolling my eyes as Sandy was laughing quietly. I'm going to brain everyone in about a second. Mom muttered under her breath. Probably be a good idea. I don't think what she said carried very far, but it did to Marcia, who looked at me and winked. Sandy saw the wink and elbowed me. This was the dinner from hell. Lord help me, I needed to get out of there. After we finished our sandwiches, I stood up and said, we should head home and get ready for our first day at work tomorrow. I need to get my clothes ready and polish my shoes. I pushed back my chair, hoping Sandy would follow my lead. Everyone stood with us. As we got ready to leave, each of my sisters gave me a hug, and Marcia gave me an extra long one. Mom hugged me and whispered, I'll leave the big kiss for your father. That made me smile. They all thanked me for the Valentine cards. I shook Jake's hand and gave Dad a hug. Sandy also got warm hugs from everyone and gave Dad a kiss on the cheek. I was relieved to be escaping my funny, if slightly over-the-top, family. In the car, I turned to Sandy. You told them everything, didn't you? She shrugged. Your mom and sisters are so open with each other. Nothing's really off limits. Your mom even shared a few stories about your dad and how they started out together. Apparently, Jake arrived early. Your parents were married only 6 months when he was born. I groaned. Too much information. She laughed. Oh, and your mom had to warn your sisters to behave around you growing up. They were both curious and a little too eager to bond with their older brother. Another groan from me. You said that to my mother? They all thought it was hilarious. Your mom was actually proud. She kept calling you a chip off the old block. And Marcia definitely seems to have a bit of a crush. I'll never be able to face them again, I muttered. Oh, come on, Sandy teased. Your dad likes me. And your mom seems happy that you found someone. I think she sees you as the next version of him. When we got home, it finally felt like ours. I pulled Sandy into a hug and said, my family's way too open. And now you've joined the club. Maybe we should invite your mom. Next time let her see how wild things can get. Sandy chuckled. She'd probably faint, but it might do her some good. We picked out our clothes for the next day. I chose a simple business outfit: slacks, white shirt, and a sport coat. Sandy picked a professional suit she could pair with a nice top. My shoes were already shined. I had clean clothes lined up for the week, so I was all set. Sandy set up her makeup at the sink, and we got everything ready for the morning. We were in bed by 10, happy and tired. Before sunrise, the alarm rang. Sandy had set it early, so we wouldn't be rushed. We got up, stripped the bed to toss the laundry in, and got dressed in casual clothes for breakfast. Before we left, I handed Sandy a Valentine's card. She smiled, gave me a warm hug and kiss, then handed me one in return, simple, sweet, and perfectly us. We were ready for the day. As we walked out of our place, Stormy was coming up the street. He waved and pointed to Shirley's house. He knocked on her door, and Bonnie and Shirley both came out. Shirley said, you two have to know, Bonnie never gets up this early. We have some things to do this morning, so we're going to go eat with Stormy. Sandy and Stormy were signing as we walked to the patio. Shirley said, Stormy really likes the idea of someone else talking to him. We have a deaf boy here too that is one of the welders and sheet metal men. He'll be happy to know someone else can talk with him. The patio was packed. There were decorations over the house door and big red paper hearts hanging from the ceiling. Everyone seemed to be in a festive mood, with lots of hugs wishing each other happy Valentine's Day. When Sandy and I sat, she said, this place is wonderful. If we weren't in a good mood before we came, we would be by now. This is a great way to get ready for the day. A tall, dark lady with a couple of kids introduced herself as Deanna and said, you're right. This is the best way to start the day. It always makes me happy, and I know it helps me to do a better job at work. At the table, Henry came over to us and said, when you're dressed for work, come back over and ride to work with Nina and me. I'll have the secretary at the R&D center get you a cart. If you would, you two ride together in the future, or whoever doesn't have the cart, ride with someone else. That way, there aren't too many carts at your place. Sandy and I went home and dressed for our first day. We put the freshly washed sheets into the dryer and headed to the patio. Back at the patio, Henry and Nina rode up in their cart and waved at us. We rode over to the big quality ware buildings. Nina said, you two need to go to the cafeteria building. Go through the cafeteria to the double doors that say theater. Someone will be there to take your name. You may be too early. If you are, just go back into the cafeteria for a cup of coffee. Coffee is always free. The cafeteria building was as big as the rest of the buildings. The first floor housed the cafeteria, the first floor of the daycare center, and we now found out, the theater. When we walked into the theater, a lady met us with a clipboard. She asked for our company ID cards, and when we showed them, she marked us off her list. She said, we won't begin until 8:30, so you can go have a coffee if you want, or you can take a seat and read the literature I put out for you. I looked at Sandy. She looked at me and said, I've had enough coffee. Let's read what they have. We sat as close to the front as we could and read the information about the various companies. They had brochures for several different companies and products, and even a small catalog of some kind of special tools. There was a 3-page history of the companies. It told of how Steve Sharp started out with a welding shop and just kept growing. It told of how Sue Sharp had started her business out of her home with an internet mail order business. There were multiple instances where it said someone took advantage of an opportunity. There was a constant theme that the company's success was because of everyone striving for perfection. Sandy said to me, "This company grew fast, didn't it? Can you believe how many people work for them now? SNS has factories in Canada, Europe, Hawaii, and now Guam." I said, "According to this, they have an air charter service, a pilot training school, and even a helicopter charter service. They have a boat charter service with fishing guides, as well as a sailboat charter group. They are really diverse." "I'm really interested in the information about the military clothing contracts," Sandy said. "That's a tough, competitive business. I wonder how they win bids if they pay good wages like everyone is telling us they do." "Did you see this?" I said, pointing at the pamphlet for R&D. "They are working on miniaturization of electric turbines and generators, as well as power storage and batteries. They also have several projects in progress right now concerning electric cars. I guess that if they produce electric and gas carts, they might want to extend their time between charges." "I'm getting excited." Sandy said, "We're lucky. I'm really glad we came out here." "Me too." There were about 40 people gathered in the theater this morning. In this economy, that is a lot of new hires. Henry came to the podium and said, "Welcome to SNS Enterprises and Quality Wear Products, everyone. My name is Henry Sharp. You would usually be greeted by either Steve or Sue Sharp, but they are traveling this morning, so you get me, Steve's big brother. Let me tell you a little about Steve and Sue and these great companies." Henry spoke for almost 2 hours with a visual presentation of product after product. The more he showed, the more items I recognized. This company was really something. Henry constantly kept talking about everyone trying to make the company's products perfect. He kept showing pictures of doorways with a slogan over it, "Is it perfect?" We broke for a potty break, then returned until lunch. After lunch, a lady from personnel spoke with us about the health plans. SNS had one plan and Quality Wear had a different one, probably because of the amount of employees. We were told that we would receive additional information about our specific plans. At a little after 3, we were told that we were through for the day, but they recommended we visit our workplace so we could find it easily in the morning. She said that the person at the door had directions for each of us. At the door, Sandy received her card and I received mine. The girl asked us both to wait until she had given out all of the cards, since she needed to speak with us. When everyone had been directed to his or her workplace, the girl said, "Sandy," and pointed to Sandy. The girl, "Go see if Calvin is in. Your office will be across from his and next to Mr. Molson's. It has your name on the door, so you should be able to find it. Say hi, but don't get involved yet. You're going to be busy from the opening bell tomorrow. They are working on some big projects." Sandy, she pointed to me. "Here are the keys to the bright red and blue cart in the first slot of the cart lot. Take it to the R&D center and check with them. Don't get involved over there either, as anything you start is going to keep you late. Just say hi and tell them you'll see them in the morning. Come back here, pick up Sandy, and go home. I'm told you guys are having a party at the park tonight. Enjoy, and I'll see you both tomorrow. I have to go over your health insurance and 401k stuff with you tomorrow. See ya." I told Sandy that I would be back in an hour, so be ready about 4:15 to 4:30. The R&D guard checked my badge, then had me do a thumbprint on the scanner. He said, "When you come in after hours, put your card into the slot and your thumb on the scanner. If it recognizes you, the door will unlock. If not, go home, you can't get in." The secretary was friendly and showed me into the main lab. One of the lab techs showed me the test chambers where they had small engines being tested. He explained that the engines were for the aircraft SNS were experimenting with. I was also shown the wind turbine experiments, along with the battery storage area. Once again, I saw the dark-haired girl checking pieces of fiberglass. She looked up and smiled at me, but went right back to work. I could see that there was a lot to do here. The lab tech took me to the offices. Right there on the door to an office was my name. Inside was pretty stark. There was a desk-type workstation, a PC with 3 monitors, along with a drafting table, a flat work or conference table with chairs, and a large screen something on the wall. The tech said, "You can put one of your PC screens up there, or use it while you're working. Some of the guys like to see what they're doing on the big screen. Hans likes to project stuff on his ceiling." As I was getting ready to leave, an older guy came in. He introduced himself as Abe. "I'm one of the old-timers around here. These engines are mostly mine. Dennis has become instrumental in their development too, as was Hans before we shipped him back to Krautland." Abe laughed and corrected himself. "That's Germany. Hope that doesn't upset you. I've always teased Hans that he was a Kraut or something like that. We're pretty good friends." I hated to see him leave. Abe turned around and waved at the room. This place is a fun place to work. I'll be in and out constantly, as will Jerry, Jeff, Dennis, Wes, and even Steve Sharp. Anyone who has a project usually runs it by us out here. If we have a quality control issue, it goes through us here. You're going to be busy, so get ready. Abe visibly relaxed. But right now, you and I are going to go home and get ready for the surprise for our ladies. Let's get out of here. As we went outside, I told Abe that I needed to pick Sandy up. He said he would see me in a little bit. Sandy was waiting in the lobby for me. We went to our place, where we both washed our faces and brushed our teeth to freshen up. I kept my coat around, and when not noticed, I slipped my gift for Sandy into my pocket. I was getting excited. I asked Sandy, ready for a little liquid libation? Let's go see who all is at the patio. When we walked to the patio, we were surprised to see a monster tent covering almost half of the open yard area. The tent had sides so you couldn't see inside. There were some of the security people standing at the entrances, and people were being discouraged from going into the tent. As soon as we went into the patio, one of the women had Sandy go with her, while Henry, Tiny, and Abe were calling me to the bar. I had a scotch on the rocks, thinking this night was going to be a real turning point in my life. This was going to be a real surprise for all the women. No gulping of booze tonight. I sipped, and when I thought I was drinking too fast, I began mixing the scotch with water. Around 6:20, there were no women on the patio, only men. How strange. Tiny looked at his watch and said, "We're supposed to take our women to the tent at exactly 6:30. I hope they show up pretty soon." 5 minutes later, a parade of women decked out to the nines came walking into the patio. Every woman there, whether she had a man or not, was wearing a very beautiful formal gown. All of them had their hair and makeup nicely done. Sandy was beautiful. She came up to me and gave me a kiss with her very red lips. I could taste the lipstick. Tiny spoke up, "Ladies and gentlemen, let's go see what's in the tent." We all headed into the tent. The women were really impressed with how elegant the room inside the tent looked. There was soft lighting with candles on every table. Soft music was being played as we all found our assigned table. Sandy and I were paired with Ryan and Michelle House. Ryan was like a vice president of operations and traveled constantly. Michelle told us she traveled with Ryan when she could. The meal was spectacular. While we ate, Sandy and Michelle explained that the women knew we were up to something and decided to one-up us with gowns. They had raided every thrift shop and Goodwill store in town to come up with all the fancy clothes. Michelle said, "You guys have exceeded our wildest expectations. This is a special Valentine's Day." When we had been served cognac and coffee, Tiny stood and said, "At this time, I want everyone to see and hear what I have for Rose, my wonderful wife and mate." He had Rose stand. She was in a beautiful gown with lots of cleavage showing. Tiny smiled at her and said, "Rose, I love you more each day, and this day, Valentine's Day 2011, is special as it is our 20th year together. Please accept this necklace as a small token of my love for you. Happy Valentine's Day, Rose." The diamond necklace sparkled in the light. Everyone could see it glisten. Rose had tears running down her cheeks as Tiny fastened the necklace around her neck. When it was on, they kissed passionately. Everyone began applauding and cheering. Tiny then said, "I think all of you have something for your lady. Now is the time." Sandy turned to me with a wide-eyed look. I brought my hand from my pocket with the long, heavy gold chain and extra large gold heart locket. I smiled at her as she leaned to give me a sweet kiss on the lips. I had her turn so I could fasten it around her neck. With her short hair, nothing got in the way. When she turned back around, her eyes glistened the same as most of the women in the tent. I picked up the heavy locket and held it out so she could see it. I told her, "Inside is something special, something inscribed." I held it so she could see and pressed the catch to open the locket. Sandy gasped. Big tears ran down her cheeks as she grasped the locket and kissed me. She kept saying, "Yes, yes, oh yes." I took the diamond ring that had been hiding inside the locket and slipped it on her left ring finger and received another kiss and hug. Sandy said, "This is so right, so perfect. I just knew we were meant to be." She turned the locket around so she could read the inscription and said yes, yes again. Inside the locket it read, "Be my Valentine." Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.